Dr. Kelmar Voss adjusted his pristine white coat and checked his reflection in the polished metal surface of his medical scanner. 4 eyes, perfectly symmetrical blue skin, and not a single scale out of place. As head physician aboard the interstellar medical station Hippocrates, he took pride in his appearance almost as much as his medical expertise. After all, when you've treated 17 different species across 3 galaxy sectors, presentation matters. The emergency klaxon shattered his moment of self-admiration. Red lights bathed the pristine medical bay as his communication device crackled to life. Emergency transport incoming, Dr. Voss. Human male mining accident, unconscious and bleeding. ETA 30 seconds. Kelmar sighed. Humans. Of course it was humans. Ever since they'd joined the Galactic Federation 5 years ago, they'd been nothing but trouble. Not maliciously, mind you, but they had this annoying habit of getting themselves into situations that should have killed them. Then walking away with what they called a few scratches. The transport bay doors hissed open, revealing a hover gurney carrying what appeared to be a standard human male. Brown hair, average height, wearing the typical mining gear of the Outer Rim colonies. Blood seeped through bandages hastily applied to his arms and torso. Nothing too unusual, really. Patient identification, Jake Martinez, age 32, human male, found unconscious after a tunnel collapse on Kepler 442 billion. Vitals stable but showing unusual readings. Kelmar's assistant, a nervous Quillen named Trill, extended 3 of her 7 tentacles to help transfer Jake onto the examination table. Her chromatophores flickered between worried purple and cautious yellow. Define unusual readings, Kelmar said, activating his bioscanner. Well, sir, his internal temperature is elevated to what should be lethal levels, his white blood cell count is through the roof, and his immune system appears to be, well, it's hard to explain. Kelmar frowned as the scanner's holographic display materialized above Jake's unconscious form. The readings were indeed unusual. More than unusual, actually. They were downright terrifying. Trill, run a full diagnostic on the scanner. These readings can't be correct. I've already run 3 diagnostics, Doctor. The scanner is functioning perfectly. Kelmar stared at the display in growing horror. According to his instruments, Jake's immune system was in a state of absolute war. White blood cells were mobilizing in numbers that would overwhelm most species' entire circulatory systems. Inflammatory responses were triggering cascades that should have shut down multiple organ systems. His body temperature was elevated to levels that would cook a Quillen's brain. And yet, somehow Jake's vital signs remained stable. This is impossible, Kelmar muttered, running a second scan. His immune system is attacking everything. Foreign pathogens, damaged tissue, even healthy cells caught in the crossfire. It's like his body has declared war on itself. Trill's tentacles coiled nervously. Should we sedate him? Apply immunosuppressants? Absolutely not. If we interfere with whatever biochemical warfare is happening inside him, we might kill him. Kelmar paused. Assuming he's not already dying from what appears to be the most catastrophic immune response in recorded medical history. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, a doctor who'd spent decades studying the delicate balance of biological systems, faced with a patient whose body seemed to operate on the principle that the best defense was a good offense. An offense that, by all rights, should have turned Jake into a fever-induced vegetable hours ago. Dr. Trill whispered, her chromatophores now pulsing a deep, worried purple. What if this is normal for humans? Kelmar's 4 eyes widened simultaneously. The thought had occurred to him, but he dismissed it as impossible. No species could survive with immune systems this aggressive. It would be like trying to perform surgery with a plasma cannon. Run a comparison analysis with our database of human medical records, he ordered. Trill's tentacles danced across the control panel with practiced efficiency. After a moment, she looked up with an expression that could only be described as existential dread. Doctor, according to our records, these readings fall within normal parameters for human immune response to trauma. Kelmar felt his scales shift to a pale, sickly yellow. Normal parameters? Yes, sir. In fact, by human standards, this appears to be a relatively mild immune response. The distinguished alien physician, who had remained calm during 3 different plague outbreaks and a biological warfare incident, suddenly felt the need to sit down. Jake Martinez opened his eyes slowly, the way people do when they're not entirely sure they want to see what's waiting for them. The first thing he noticed was the sterile white ceiling, which pretty much confirmed his suspicions about being in a medical facility. The second thing he noticed was the blue-skinned alien staring at him with 4 eyes that conveyed a mix of fascination and barely contained terror. "Oh, hey there, Doc," Jake said, his voice slightly hoarse. "I'm guessing the mining thing didn't go so well?" Dr. Kelmar Voss nearly jumped out of his perfectly pressed lab coat. "You're awake. You're conscious. You're talking." "Yeah, that's generally what happens when people wake up." Jake tried to sit up, winced slightly, then shrugged and made it happen anyway. "Though I've got to say, I feel like I got hit by a freight train made of other freight trains." "You shouldn't be able to sit up," Kelmar said, checking his scanner frantically. "Your immune system is in complete chaos. Your body temperature is 41 degrees Celsius. Your white blood cell count is astronomical." Jake blinked. 41 degrees? That's what, about 106 Fahrenheit? He considered this. "Yeah, that's not great. No wonder I feel like garbage. You got any of those fever reducers? The good stuff?" Kelmar's scales shifted to a deeper shade of confused blue. "Fever reducers? You want to suppress your immune response?" "Well, yeah, running a fever sucks. Makes you feel all achy and gross." Jake looked around the medical bay with mild interest. "Nice setup you've got here. Very clean. I dig the whole everything is white and glowy aesthetic. Mr. Martinez, I need you to understand something. Your current immune response would be fatal to most species in the galaxy. The levels of inflammation in your system should have caused complete organ failure hours ago." Jake processed this information with the same casual attention he might give to a weather report. That's weird. I mean, I definitely feel sick, but it's not like I'm dying or anything. I had way worse hangovers, to be honest." At this point, Nurse Trill chose to enter the conversation by fainting. Her tentacles went limp, and she collapsed into what could generously be described as a pile of worried purple alien. "Is she okay?" Jake asked, nodding toward the unconscious Quillen. "She'll be fine. This is her first time treating a human patient." Kelmar helped Trill to a nearby chair, where she remained unconscious but at least upright. "Mr. Martinez, I need you to explain to me how your immune system works." "How it works? I don't know, Doc. It's not like I went to medical school." Jake scratched his head, which caused Kelmar to flinch, as if expecting Jake's brain to fall out. "I mean, when you get sick, your body fights it off. White blood cells and stuff. Fever burns out the bad guys. Pretty basic stuff." "Basic?" Kelmar's voice climbed an octave. "You call this basic? Your white blood cells are essentially conducting a scorched earth campaign against everything in your circulatory system." "Yeah, that sounds about right. My immune system doesn't really do subtle." Jake grinned, apparently finding this amusing. "One time I got food poisoning from some sketchy sushi, and my body basically declared martial law for 3 days. Couldn't keep anything down, fever, the works. But hey, killed whatever was trying to kill me. So mission accomplished." Kelmar was frantically taking notes. "And this is normal? For humans? Sure. I mean, some people have stronger immune systems than others, but we're all pretty much walking biological warfare units. Kind of have to be, considering our evolutionary history." Trill chose this moment to regain consciousness, just in time to hear Jake's casual description of humans as biological warfare units. Her chromatophores immediately shifted to panic yellow, and she looked like she was about to faint again. No, stay with us, Trill," Kelmar said quickly. "Mr. Martinez, when you say biological warfare units..." "Oh, we're pretty good at fighting off diseases and stuff. Had to be, really. Earth was basically a biological shooting gallery for most of human history. Plagues, parasites, viruses, bacteria, You name it. If it could kill you, we probably had to deal with it at some point. And you survived all of this? Well, obviously. I mean, not me personally, but humans as a species. Natural selection and all that. The ones who couldn't fight off diseases didn't make it, and the ones who could fight off diseases made more humans who could fight off diseases. Basic evolutionary biology, Doc. Kelmar looked at his notes, then at Jake, then at his notes again. Mr. Martinez, I think I need to sit down. You're already sitting, Doc. Then I need to sit down more. Jake leaned back against the examination table, seemingly oblivious to the fact that he was single-handedly causing an existential crisis in two different alien species. So what else do you want to know about human biology? I mean, I'm not exactly a medical expert, but I've been living in this body for 32 years, so I've got some practical experience. Dr. Kelmar Voss looked up from his notes, his four eyes focusing on Jake with the intensity of someone trying to solve a particularly complex puzzle. You mentioned that your immune system response is normal for humans. Are there variations in this response? Oh, sure. Some people have autoimmune disorders where their immune system gets confused and starts attacking healthy tissue. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, type 1 diabetes, that sort of thing. Trill's tentacles began to twitch nervously. Their immune systems attack their own bodies? Yeah, it's a real pain. My Aunt Linda has rheumatoid arthritis, and her immune system basically decided her joints were the enemy. Causes all sorts of inflammation and pain. Jake shrugged. But hey, at least her immune system is enthusiastic about its job, right? Kelmar's scales had shifted to a sickly green color. And people with these conditions survive? Sure, with treatment. Anti-inflammatory drugs, immunosuppressants, that sort of thing. Modern medicine is pretty good at managing autoimmune disorders. Aunt Linda still plays tennis twice a week. Your aunt's immune system is actively destroying her joint tissue, and she plays tennis? Well, not on the bad days. But yeah, she's pretty tough. All humans are, really. We kind of have to be. Kelmar made more frantic notes. What about allergies? Please tell me allergies aren't as terrifying as they sound. Jake's expression brightened. Oh, allergies are hilarious. So your immune system decides that something totally harmless, like peanuts or pollen, is actually a deadly threat, and it responds accordingly. Accordingly how? Well, it depends on the person. Some people get sneezy and itchy. Others go into anaphylactic shock, where their immune system basically tries to kill them to protect them from the allergen. Airways close up, blood pressure drops, the whole 9 yards. Trill made a sound that could only be described as a whimper. Their immune systems try to kill them? Yeah, but that's what EpiPens are for. You just stab yourself with a dose of epinephrine. And boom, crisis averted. My buddy Dave is allergic to shellfish, and he's been through anaphylactic shock 3 times. Still loves going to seafood restaurants, though. Says the risk is worth it for good crab cakes. He voluntarily exposes himself to a substance that could kill him. For good crab cakes? Absolutely. Have you ever had Maryland blue crab? Totally worth potentially dying for. Kelmar was beginning to understand why humans had been so successful in galactic conflicts. It wasn't just that they were tough. They were completely insane. Mr. Martinez, what about cancer? Please tell me human cancer isn't as horrifying as human immune responses. Jake considered this. Well, cancer is basically when your own cells go rogue and start multiplying out of control. They ignore the normal rules of cell division and just start growing tumors wherever they feel like it. And how does your immune system respond to this? It tries to kill the cancer cells, obviously. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's why we have chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Basically, we poison the entire body or blast it with radiation, hoping to kill the cancer faster than we kill the patient. Trill had gone completely pale, her chromatophores flickering between white and yellow. You poison yourselves? It's targeted poisoning mostly, and radiation therapy is pretty precise these days. Sure, it makes you feel terrible and your hair falls out, but hey, better than dying of cancer. Let me understand this correctly, Kelmar said slowly. Humans routinely survive diseases that would be extinction-level events for other species. Your immune systems are so aggressive they sometimes try to kill you. You voluntarily expose yourselves to allergens that could cause fatal reactions. And when you get cancer, you poison and irradiate yourselves as treatment. Yeah, that's a pretty good summary. Oh, and sometimes we get diseases that are supposedly fatal, and we just don't die. My grandfather had pancreatic cancer, which is supposed to be one of the worst ones. Doctors gave him 6 months to live. He made it 3 years out of pure stubbornness. Pure stubbornness? Yeah, he was pissed off about having cancer, so he decided not to die until he'd finished building his deck. Took him 3 years to finish it, mostly because he kept adding new features. By the time he was done, the cancer had gone into remission. Doctors had no idea how. Kelmar stared at Jake for a long moment. Your grandfather survived terminal cancer through willpower and home improvement projects. Pretty much. He was a real DI kind of guy. Dr. Kelmar Voss set down his stylus and looked directly at Jake with all 4 eyes. Mr. Martinez, I need to understand something. How did humans evolve to be so resilient? Jake settled back more comfortably, apparently enjoying the role of unofficial human biology lecturer. Well, Doc, Earth wasn't exactly what you'd call a friendly place. We had to deal with pretty much every biological threat you can imagine, and a few you probably can't. Such as? Plagues, for starters. The Black Death killed about 1/3 of Europe in the 14th century. Smallpox wiped out entire civilizations. Spanish flu killed somewhere between 50 and 100 million people in 1918. And those are just the famous ones. Trill's tentacles had coiled into tight spirals. Your species survived multiple extinction-level plagues? Oh, those weren't extinction level. Extinction level would be something like the Toba supervolcanic eruption about 70,000 years ago. That one nearly got us, dropped the human population down to maybe a few thousand individuals. But we bounced back. Kelmar's scales had shifted to a deep purple that indicated either deep thought or mild panic. And parasites? Oh man, parasites were the worst. Still are, in some parts of the world. Malaria, sleeping sickness, river blindness, intestinal worms that can grow to be 30 feet long. We've got parasites that live in our blood, our organs, our brains. Some of them are so well adapted to human hosts that they can actually change our behavior. Change your behavior? Yeah, like Toxoplasma gondii. It's this parasite that makes mice less afraid of cats, so the cats eat the mice, and the parasite gets to complete its life cycle in the cat's digestive system. Turns out it does weird things to human brains too. Makes people more likely to take risks. Changes personality traits. That sort of thing. And you're okay with this? Jake shrugged. I mean, it's not like we have a choice. About 1/3 of the world's population is infected with toxoplasma. Most people don't even know they have it. It's just one of those things you live with. One of those things you live with, Kelmar repeated faintly. Sure. Same with all the bacteria living in our digestive systems. We've got something like 37 trillion bacterial cells in our bodies, which is actually more than the number of human cells. They help us digest food, produce vitamins, fight off harmful bacteria. It's a pretty good deal. Really. Want? Trill made a sound that suggested she was about to faint again. You have 37 trillion foreign organisms living inside you? Well, they're not exactly foreign anymore. We've been evolving together for millions of years. Some of them are so integrated into our biology that we can't survive without them. Kill off someone's gut bacteria with antibiotics, and you've got to replace them, or the person gets sick. You replace them how? Fecal transplants, mostly. Take healthy bacteria from someone else's digestive system and transplant them into the patient. Kelmar was frantically scribbling notes. You transplant fecal matter? It's more scientific than it sounds. But yeah, basically. Sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire or bacteria with bacteria, or whatever. This is insane, Kelmar muttered. Your entire species is essentially a walking ecosystem of competing microorganisms, and you've somehow managed to turn it into a functional biological system. Yeah, we're pretty adaptable. Had to be, really. Earth threw everything it had at us for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, predators, diseases, parasites, you name it. The ones who couldn't adapt died out. And the ones who could adapt had kids who were even better at adapting. And now? Now we're pretty much impossible to kill. I mean, individual humans die all the time, but humans as a species? We're like cockroaches, except with opposable thumbs and a tendency to build spaceships. Kelmar looked up from his notes. Mr. Martinez, how are you feeling right now? Pretty good, actually. Still a little achy, but the fever's breaking. I'll probably be ready to get back to work in a day or two. You'll be ready to get back to work? You suffered massive trauma in a mining accident. Your immune system is still in active combat mode, and you want to go back to work. Well, I can't afford to take too much time off. The medical bills don't pay themselves. Jake grinned. Besides, I've had worse. You've had worse than this? Sure. One time I got bit by a rattlesnake while hiking. Took me 6 hours to get to a hospital, and by then the venom had spread pretty much everywhere. Spent 3 days in intensive care, but I made it through. Doctors said I was lucky to be alive. And you consider this worse than a rattlesnake bite? Jake considered this. Nah, the snake bite was definitely worse. At least this time I was unconscious for the worst part. Dr. Kelmar Voss leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a long moment. Mr. Martinez, I'm beginning to understand why humans have been so successful in galactic conflicts. Oh, you mean the war with the Centauri? Yeah, that was pretty one-sided. One-sided is putting it mildly. Human forces took casualties that should have ended the conflict, then kept fighting as if nothing had happened. Jake nodded. That's kind of our thing. We're really good at not dying when we're supposed to die. Comes in handy in combat situations. I've read the after-action reports. Human soldiers continued fighting with injuries that would have incapacitated our forces completely. Broken bones, blood loss, what your military calls non-life-threatening wounds that would be fatal to most species. Well, we've got a pretty high pain tolerance, and we're good at improvising medical treatment in the field. Plus, adrenaline is a hell of a drug. Trill, who had been quietly listening while trying not to faint, finally spoke up. What's adrenaline? Oh, it's this hormone that gets released when you're in danger or stressed. Makes you stronger, faster, less sensitive to pain. It's basically your body's way of saying deal with this crisis now, worry about the consequences later. Your bodies produce their own combat drugs? Yeah, we've got a whole cocktail of useful chemicals. Adrenaline, endorphins, cortisol, testosterone. When humans get into fight or flight mode, we become pretty formidable. Kelmar was taking notes again. And this is in addition to your overpowered immune systems? Oh, sure. The immune system is just one part of the whole package. We've also got redundant organs, efficient healing responses, high pain tolerance, and the ability to function on minimal sleep and nutrition for extended periods. Redundant organs? Yeah, we've got 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. Lose one, and you're still functional. Plus, the liver can regenerate itself, and humans can survive losing up to 40% of their blood volume. 40%? Jake shrugged. I mean, you're not going to feel great about it, but you'll live. The human body is basically designed to keep going even when everything's going wrong. This explains so much, Kelmar muttered. The Battle of Kepler 438 billion, when human forces continued fighting for 6 hours after their medical supplies were cut off. Yeah, I heard about that. Bunch of Marines got hit with some kind of Centauri biological weapon. Should have taken them out of the fight, but they just powered through it. Apparently their immune systems adapted to the weapon mid-battle. Mid-battle? Human immune systems are really good at learning on the job. Encounter a new threat, develop antibodies, share the information with other immune cells. It's like having a constantly updating antivirus program. Trill's chromatophores had shifted to a deep blue color that indicated either awe or terror. Dr. Voss, I think I need to ask something. What is it, Trill? Well, if humans are so resilient and adaptable, and their immune systems are so powerful, how do new humans get made? Jake looked confused. You mean reproduction? Yes. With immune systems that attack everything foreign, how does human reproduction work? Oh, that's actually a really good question. The female immune system has to basically turn itself down during pregnancy, otherwise it would attack the developing fetus as a foreign invader. It's a pretty delicate balance. Turn itself down? Yeah, pregnant women are more susceptible to infections and diseases because their immune systems are suppressed. But it's temporary. Once the baby is born, the immune system goes back to full strength. And the birth process itself? Jake paused. I'm probably not the best person to ask about that. I've never personally given birth. But from what I understand, it's pretty intense. Human babies have relatively large heads compared to the birth canal, so it's basically like trying to squeeze a watermelon through a keyhole. And women survive this? Most of the time, yeah. Modern medicine has made it a lot safer, but women have been giving birth for millions of years. It's just another thing humans are surprisingly good at surviving. Trill's tentacles had gone completely limp. I think I need to lie down. You're already sitting down, Trill. Then I need to lie down more. Kelmar looked up from his notes with an expression of someone who had just realized something profound and terrifying. Mr. Martinez, your species isn't just resilient. You're essentially biological weapons that have achieved sentience and learned to build spaceships. When you put it like that, it sounds kind of ominous. But really, we're pretty friendly. We just happen to be really, really hard to kill. And you consider this normal? Jake grinned. Doc, compared to some of the stuff humans have survived, a little mining accident is basically a minor inconvenience. 3 hours later, Jake Martinez was sitting up in bed, looking remarkably healthy for someone who had arrived at the medical station in what most species would consider a critical condition. His fever had broken. His white blood cell count was returning to what Dr. Kelmar Voss had learned to accept as normal for humans, and his wounds were healing at a rate that defied everything Kelmar thought he knew about biology. Well, Doc, I'm feeling pretty good, Jake announced, stretching his arms above his head. I think I'm ready to get out of here. Kelmar looked at his scanner readings one more time, then at Jake, then at the scanner again. Mr. Martinez, according to these readings, your body has successfully fought off what should have been a life-threatening infection, repaired significant tissue damage, and restored normal immune function in less than 4 hours. Sounds about right. I've always been a fast healer. Fast healer? You've essentially performed a medical miracle. I don't know about miracle. I just got plenty of rest, stayed hydrated, and let my immune system do its thing. Sometimes that's all you need. Trill, who had spent the last hour quietly updating human medical protocols, looked up from her workstation. Dr. Voss, I've finished revising our emergency procedures for human patients. What did you change? Well, I added a note that says expect the impossible at the top of every page. Then I basically rewrote everything based on the assumption that human biology operates on principles that are fundamentally different from every other known species. That's probably wise, Kelmar agreed. Mr. Martinez, before I discharge you, I need to ask one more question. Shoot. You mentioned earlier that you have a minor headache. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this headache? Jake considered this. Oh, maybe a 3? It's not too bad. I've definitely had worse. Kelmar consulted his scanner one more time. Mr. Martinez, according to these readings, you have a moderate concussion. Huh, that explains the headache. You've been casually conversing with me for hours while suffering from a brain injury. Well, it's not like I was going to mention it. What's the point of complaining about a little headache when you guys were so worried about the fever and the immune system stuff? little headache? You have a concussion. Yeah, but it's not a bad concussion. I've had worse. One time I got knocked out for 20 minutes during a football game, and I still finished the game. This is nothing compared to that. Kelmar updated Jake's medical chart with a note that read, "Patient considers moderate concussion to be minor inconvenience. Discharge approved with standard concussion protocols, though patient will likely ignore them." All right, Mr. Martinez, you're free to go. Just take it easy for a few days, avoid heavy lifting, and come back if you experience any unusual symptoms. What kind of unusual symptoms? For a human? I honestly have no idea. Just use your best judgment. Jake laughed. Will do, Doc. Thanks for taking such good care of me. As Jake left the medical bay, Kelmar turned to Trill. You know, I think I'm beginning to understand why the Galactic Federation was so eager to ally with humanity. Why's that, Doctor? Because if you can't beat them, you definitely want them on your side. A species that considers concussions to be minor inconveniences and treats biological warfare as a Tuesday afternoon problem is not something you want to fight against. What should we do with this information? Kelmar looked at his notes, which now filled several data pads and contained enough information to revolutionize xenobiology. We're going to publish a paper titled Human Biology, a study in controlled chaos. It should be required reading for every medical professional in the galaxy. And the subtitle? Why humans are essentially unkillable, and how to treat them anyway. Trill's chromatophores flickered to a amused green. That should be an interesting read. Oh, it will be. Especially the section on how Jake's minor headache turned out to be a moderate brain injury that he completely ignored for 4 hours. Do you think other humans are similar? Kelmar considered this. Trill, I think we've only scratched the surface of human biology. If Jake is representative of his species, then humans aren't just tough. They're basically walking proof that evolution sometimes has a sense of humor. How so? No. Think about it. Most species evolve efficient, balanced biological systems. Humans evolved biological systems that are completely over-engineered for survival. They're like someone took a basic life support system and decided to add military-grade armor, automatic weapons, and a nuclear reactor. And they don't even realize how unusual this is. That's the best part. To them, this is completely normal. Jake genuinely couldn't understand why we were so concerned about his immune response. As far as he's concerned, having a biological warfare unit for an immune system is just part of being human. Trill began organizing the medical supplies that had been prepared for Jake's treatment but never used. Dr. Voss, do you think we should be concerned about humans spreading throughout the galaxy? Concerned? No, impressed? Absolutely. Humans aren't just survivors, Trill. They're the galaxy's most inadvertently intimidating species. They walk around with biological systems that could power small warships, and they use them to fight off the common cold. That's actually kind of reassuring. How so? Patient. Well, if humans are on our side, we probably don't have to worry about much of anything. They seem to be pretty good at not dying. Kelmar laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had since Jake arrived. That, Trill, might be the understatement of the century. Humans don't just not die. They actively refuse to die, even when the universe is strongly suggesting that they should. And they do it with a smile. And they do it with a smile, Kelmar agreed. Now, let's get these medical protocols updated. Something tells me Jake won't be our last human patient, and I want to be ready next time someone shows up with a minor headache that turns out to be a moderate brain injury. Should I add a note about that to the protocols? Add a note that says, when treating humans, always scan for injuries the patient hasn't mentioned. Then add another note that says humans will always have injuries they haven't mentioned. And if they mention an injury, then it's probably much worse than they're letting on. As the two medical professionals continued updating their protocols, neither of them noticed Jake Martinez walking past the observation window, whistling cheerfully as he headed back to the mining station. His minor headache had indeed been a moderate concussion, but as far as Jake was concerned, it was just another Tuesday in the life of a human being. After all, he had work to do, and a little brain injury wasn't going to stop him from finishing his shift.